glad you could join me. My name's Connie, Cappy. I'm coming to you from Jiva Yoga Center in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. A yin practice today. A practice of slowing down, a practice of going deeper, a chance to really get connected with our practice, our bodies, our minds. Longer held poses that allow us to go deeper into our tissues, to our joints. I'm happy that we're here sharing this practice together. What you'll need today is simply a blanket. And if you don't have one of these colorful yoga blankets, any blanket will do. A beach towel works just great. Off to the side right now with that blanket. And we'll start by coming into our feet for our very first pose, a toe squat. You come over onto your hands and knees and curl your toes under. When you curl your toes under, then walk your hands back to put a little more weight onto your feet. And reach back, take your little toes and encourage them to come forward and be as involved in this stretch as the other 8 toes are. So your weight is in the balls of your feet with your toes curled under. If this feels like it's a little too intense, you could bring your body forward and support yourself to take some of that weight off of your feet, out of your feet, and then be there for as long as you would like. It might be the entire length of the pose, or you might start to make your way back and more upright in the pose as your body adjusts. I'm going to find a breath that's soft and steady. A breath that brings you right into this moment and right into this pose. Allow yourself to notice the sensations in the pose and how those sensations change the longer you stay in the pose. To come out of the pose, come back into tabletop onto your hands and knees. Uncurl your toes and tap the tops of your feet under. To counter that stretch, we'll stretch the tops of our feet and our ankles with an ankle stretch here. Your feet are flat now. Take your hands behind, lean back, and lift your knees if that's available. The stretch is through the tops of the feet, through the ankles. If you'd like to bring a little bit of ab work into this, you can bring your hands around and let them rest on your thighs. That simple act of balancing here in this pose strengthens the abdominals. Maybe brings you a little more into focus. Concentrate here on not tipping over. Again, simply tap into your breath, into the sensations in your feet. And to come out of the pose, come back into tabletop. Hands and knees, once again, and that little tap of your feet. curl your right toes under and slide your toes to the back of your mat. Bring some length into your right leg. Press down into your hands and lift your hips into an easy downward facing dog. Move around here a little bit. Bring some juice back into your joints and your knees and your hips. And for dragon pose now, bring your right knee down to your mat and step your left foot forward, top of your mat. Now if that's a sensitive area, your knees, and you'd like to take your blanket and slide it underneath your knee, you can do that. And then support yourself and let your hips come down and forward. So the stretch is in the hip flexor, it's in the quad. You can support yourself with one hand and both hands. You might bring both hands on the inside of your front leg. You might find that you like bringing your elbows up onto your thigh and letting your hips go further forward and lower. Notice if there's any gripping in this pose. There can be, to keep you from tipping over and stabilizing. You might notice a little bit of gripping. If that's the case, rest a hand down. Let your hips sink further forward. And let your awareness rest on that strongest sensation in your body. And breathe into that space, into that point. Come out of the pose, shift your weight onto your right knee and left heel. Slide your hips back and lift your left toes to the sky. It's an easy hamstring stretch through the back of your left leg. Tabletop once again. Curl your left toes under and slide your left toes to the back of your mat, long and straight with your leg. Look forward here with your heart to bring some length into the pose. An easy lift of your hips into downward facing dog. This time, come up onto your toes, lift your heels up high to the sky, sink your heels down low toward your mat. And do that again. Take a big breath in as you lift your heels up high. Open your mouth and breathe out. Sink your heels down low. Then that dragon on the other side. Left knee comes down. Right foot steps forward. Start to sink low in the pose. And then see where it would feel good to place your hands. Inside of your foot, surrounding your foot, or up onto your thigh. In these yin postures, we don't want to start off 100% in the pose. We want to be 50, 60% in the pose, and then find stillness and breath, softness in our hearts, and allow our bodies to simply sink into the pose. Again, if you feel a little teetery, a little grippy in the pose, support yourself so that you can relax completely. And get deep into that left hip. Notice again the strongest sensation in your body. Let your awareness rest there. As you come out, spend a moment in that hamstring stretch. Your hips sit back, your toes lift up. Feel your right heel ground. And draw your right hip back. Tabletop and child's pose. Go wide with your knees, together with your feet, and sit your hips back onto your heels. And from there, soften your torso, rest your head. Bring yourself upright. And stretch your blanket out long so that you can roll it up tight into a little bedroll here. Slide it off your mat just within your easy reach. And let me just mention here that any of these poses that I'm doing, if I don't stay in them as long as you would like, hit the pause. Stay for as long as you would like in any of the poses. Hit the play and come back into the action. Onto your belly now. With your hands stacked underneath your forehead. And give your hips a little rock side to side. As you still your hips, then lift up your right leg and stretch it long behind you. Bring it back down. We're just giving ourselves a little more space underneath our hips. Left leg, lift it up, reach it long behind you and back down. And for Spanks Pose, come up onto your forearms. Your elbows underneath your shoulders. Your elbows and your wrists parallel to one another. And press down into your forearms and palms. And lengthen the front of your body. And lift your heart away from the floor. Soften your shoulder blades down your back. If you would like to go a little deeper into this pose, the blanket can help you do that. You can bring that roll underneath you and bring your forearms onto the roll a couple of inches higher than the mat. If you try that and that's just not so good for you, take it away. But remember the 50 to 60%. Start there. Come into stillness. And simply breathe and notice. Notice what's going on in your body. Notice the changes as you stay in the pose. Because we hold these poses a long time, we want to exit the poses slowly, carefully, and mindfully. To come out of this pose, if you're using a blanket, go ahead and slide that out from underneath you and slowly lower once again, hands stacked underneath your forehead. Allow your hips that easy rock side to side. And press back into child's pose, this time with your knees and your feet together. Sit your hips to your heels. Bring your arms down along your side and rest your forehead on your mat. Allow your shoulders to be heavy, your arms to feel heavy, your back to stretch. Take your time. Come out of the pose and into seated. For Baddha Konasana, that blanket that we maybe moved a little out of our reach, you could go ahead and slide that a little bit closer. And this Baddha Konasana, rather than holding on to our feet and trying to sit up tall, we're going to help ourselves sit tall by bringing our hands behind our back. You're going to press down into your mat and push your hip points forward. And feel heavy here in your knees and in your thighs. Feel uplifted in your heart. Open, lots of space around your heart. If you feel as though you just can't quite get the leverage in this pose, this roll behind you, this blanket, can give you an extra couple of inches. You can bring that behind you, press your hands down into the blanket, hips forward, shoulders soft, inner thighs stretching with the heaviness of your knees. Couple of variations on this butterfly pose. Take your right leg straight out in front and your left foot in close. Then take your right leg and angle it just slightly toward the corner of your mat. And keeping your pelvis pointed straight ahead, rotate just your spine, not your pelvis, and walk your hands down your extended leg. Feel this stretch through your low back, to the left side. And feel the stretch through the hamstring on the right leg. And let this bent knee be heavy. And again, start softly in the pose, 50-60%. And let your breath guide you deeper into the pose. It might feel good here to keep your gaze slightly toward your ankle. It might feel better to let your head hang heavy and stretch out the back of your neck. And bring yourself now slowly upright, and your right leg wider, your left foot in closer, and a side body stretch. And take your right arm inside your leg, and open up your shoulders and reach into that diagonal space. And come straight up and over the top. You can keep your top arm reaching long, or if you bend your elbow here, it adds a little weight to the stretch. That also gives you the opportunity here to support your head. And scan your body for gripping. Notice your hips, your left leg, your right leg. Just trust in the support of your legs and your hips and your sits bones, and soften. Gently bring yourself upright out of the pose. And take your right leg straight ahead, your left foot flat. Sit tall here, and for a seated twist, go ahead and step your foot over the top of your thigh. Hold on to your knee, open your shoulders, and twist to look over the bent hip. To the left. Use the leverage of your arm holding your knee to sit tall and open your shoulders. Let your head rotate and your gaze drift back over your left shoulder. to face center. Step your foot once again on the inside of your thigh. For square pose, bend your right knee and shift off to your right side so that you can lift this left sits bone up in the air and stack your left shin on top of your right. Maybe a little adjusting here to feel equal in your sits bones, some length in your spine. If this doesn't feel so good, one of the things that you can do is take that blanket roll and bring it around in front of you, right up against your shin, and take your top foot on top of that blanket roll. Still doesn't feel so good and you need a little more, you can always sit with your ankles crossed. Whichever option you choose, then make this a pose of discovery. Sway, rock, forward and back, move around. And begin to notice your body in the areas that feel tight, the areas that you might want to just linger a little bit right there. If you're not using the blanket to rest your foot on, you might use the blanket to come forward and support your elbows, your forearms. Or you might find that that blanket feels good on your lap and fold over that way. And as you are aware of your hips and you breathe into that space, take the time to notice as well your head and your neck. And take care of yourself there by either looking a little bit forward because that feels best, or letting your head hang heavy because that feels best. Take your time, come upright and out of the pose. Again, feel free to pause this video at any time you like if you'd like to stay deeper in a pose. Set the blanket off to the side if you're using it, and windshield wiper here, hands behind, feet flat, and easy side to side with your knees. Bring the soles of your feet together now and slide them forward. Take that blanket once again, bring it underneath your thighs, maybe out underneath your knees, and let that little bit of support help in this butterfly. Walk your sits bones back, make a cat back here, nice and round, belly drawn in. And then bring that roundness, that shape of you in the round forward. This is a stretch for the low back, not so much the inner thighs. So again, just take your time and breathe and notice. Arrive slowly. And carefully now, come upright. Slide the blanket out of the way. And stretch your left leg to the corner of your mat. Your right foot in close. This variation on butterfly, half a butterfly here. Rotate, keep your pelvis, hips straight ahead. Rotate from your spine from above your pelvis and walk your hands forward. And initially, there's probably a gripping sensation as you come into the pose. You settle into the pose. And as you trust in the pose, you relax. Slowly now upright, and take this half butterfly into more of a side body stretch. So your left leg goes far out to the side, your right foot still in nice and close. Bring your left arm on the inside of your left leg. Open up your shoulders, reach long, and come up with that long reach, and over the top. Bend your elbow if you like. Support your head if that feels good. Notice your right side body, how it continues to lengthen. Notice the heaviness of your head and your shoulders. Notice the softness of your right hip and the heaviness of your right leg. Come slowly upright. Bring your left leg straight ahead. For a seated twist, your right foot over the top. Hug your knee in. Open your shoulders to the right. Allow your neck to be involved in this stretch. And shift your gaze over your right shoulder. center. Take your right foot out of the way so that you can come into square pose with a bent left knee. Lift up your right leg, your right sits bone, and stack your right shin on top of your left. Adjust here. Feel even in your sits bones. And that blanket in front of you for options. The option of bringing your foot forward onto the blanket. The option of swaying around and moving, bringing your body closer to the blanket and resting on that. The option of bringing the blanket onto your lap and folding forward over that. Or that continued action of swaying and moving and discovering. Gently make your way back upright. Windshield wipers again, feet flat, hands behind for support, and nice and easy, side to side. And then a reclining butterfly. We'll come onto our backs here. Have that roll underneath your legs so that you can bring the soles of your feet together. Come all the way down onto your back and feel the support of the blanket underneath your thighs. Now reach your arms overhead and hold opposite elbows. Give yourself a little length here through your torso. Nice stretch through your shoulders and underarms, side body. Then bring your arms back down along your side. For cat pulling its tail, take just your right leg straight up to the sky and across your body in a twist. Then sit up and find your foot that's on the mat, that left foot. Hold on to it, rest it on the blanket. And look over your right shoulder. Look to the right. Use the leverage of holding your foot to bring your right shoulder down to your mat. Your shoulders square to the sky. Start to come out. Bring your right leg back up. Let go of your foot and back into that reclining butterfly here. Soles of your feet together. Reach overhead, and when you take opposite elbows this time, do it the unfamiliar way. A different cross of your forearms. And then release your arms, stand along your side, that cat pulling its tail. On the other side, your left leg goes straight up and over. Sit up to take your right foot. Release your foot down to the blanket. Your left shoulder back to your mat. Stretch your neck by looking to the left. To come out of the pose, release your foot. Take your left leg up to the sky, both feet flat and wide. Wide to the edges of your mat, and bring your knees together. Just allow your low back to settle. Bring your feet now closer together. Lift your hips and slide the blanket underneath your sacrum. Hug your knees into your chest and make sure that blanket still feels comfortable underneath you. Keep your knees close in, but take them wide for happy baby. You can hold the outside edges of your feet or the inside edges of your feet. You're going to pull your feet down, your elbows in toward your shoulders and your armpits. Release your feet. Bring your knees together and straighten your legs. Cross your right leg over the top of your left for a supine shoelace. Bend your knees until you can reach your feet, and then take your feet and stretch them apart from one another while you keep drawing your knees in close. Might feel better to bend your knees and have your feet closer to your hips, or to keep your legs straight, stretch them apart. Probably this right hip and glute is where you feel that stretch the most. Release your feet, straighten your legs, and change sides. Left knee stacks on top of right. Hold on to your feet and pull your knees in close. Release your feet, straighten your legs, and go ahead and hug your knees once again into your chest. And bring your feet flat. Lift your hips and move the blanket closer to your heels for Shavasana. So that blanket may be underneath your thighs. It might feel better to be a little further down underneath your knees. But get comfortable. Let your body lengthen and soften. Let your heart open. And take this time, rather than tuning out, take this time to tune in and really seal in the benefits of this practice. Notice how you feel physically, mentally, emotionally. Notice your body. Notice your breath. And notice your mind. Feel free to stay in this final pose, in this relaxation pose, for as long as you like. In gratitude for this practice, and gratitude for this time together. Namaste.